Welcome to the Nerdtastic in 3D podcast.
It's Nerdtastic in 3D. Oh, it's Nerdtastic in 3D. Yes, it's Nerdtastic in 3D. It's Nerdtastic
in 3D. Bong.
The clap is so awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Nerdtastic in 3D, episode number 39.
39.
I think you got it right this time.
I did, actually. I did? Didn't you screw it up 2 shows ago?
No, I definitely screwed it up a lot. We did episode 36 like 7 times.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little extended intro this time because it's been a little while since we've done this. Nerdtastic in 3D, we are entertainment industry veterans, here to talk to you about anything and everything that we find entertaining and or nerdy. My name is Jason Carter. I work for Disney Animation, Disney Toon Studios, as the stereoscopic supervisor of an upcoming franchise.
I am Jack Deckler. Work at DreamWorks Animation. Crowds lead on Rise of the Guardians. It comes out in November.
Woohoo!
And I sound tinny and echoey, like I'm in a pit.
Of
despair. And my emotions. That's all part of my job description, by the way. There I am.
That's some beef. I like it.
My name is Sean Fennell. I also work at DreamWorks Animation. I am the crowd supervisor on Rise of the Guardians and the crowd department chairman, which means nothing.
The chair.
That's a great title, though. The chairman.
Chairman of the board.
Chairman of anything is a good thing.
And I'm Josh Sabrat, back from a little bit of a hiatus, if you will.
a
Aren't you
big
guys
word.
lucky to have me back? Everybody? Come on. Give it up for
The
me.
crickets.
Give it up for me. Anyways, I'm Josh Sabrat. I am also an employee of DreamWorks Animation, and I work in the layout department. Basically, mainly right now, doing camera work. Final camera work on the movie Turbo.
Turbo.
Yes.
And we have some returning guests / perma-subs / possibly joining us on a more regular basis.
And gosh darn it, people like
if
you.
we don't kill you first.
Thanks.
Welcome back to the show. What's your name?
My name is Jason. No, I am Sean Kearney, otherwise known as Kearney, and I am employed most of the time at Disney Mobile, where I'm a game designer on Where's My Water and Where's My Perry, and maybe one day something else.
Where's my desk chair? Seriously, what's
Dude, where's my car?
Yeah, dude, where's my car?
that would be amazing.
We gotta get that license.
I can guarantee that license is incredibly cheap. Like a 6-pack of beer cheap.
No takers on that.
Yeah,
We
they'll
get the
pay
finder's
you.
fee over
Can you
here.
find it? They actually came to us.
Yeah, it's really weird. They said, "Hey, your thing's got wares in it. You want this?"
Sean William Scott's like, sold.
We'll take that beer.
And rounding us out,
And I'm Jason Pecho. I'm an engineering manager for the team that made Where's My Water and Where's My Perry. We're called Creature Feet. We work in Disney Mobile.
and we're not going to glance over the fact that engineering manager, that's a bit of a promotion.
That is, I recently received the promotion, so now I'm sort of running the engineering team.
Yay!
Huzzah.
Good job, buddy.
Grew up.
Thank you. Well, you
Way to
know,
go to more meetings.
Yeah.
It is exactly that. Just keep going to
Good luck with those performance reviews.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Screw you for getting a bigger cheer for your job as opposed to me, who's actually back on the show. Fuck all of you.
Welcome back.
Just go ahead and kiss my ass. every
Actually,
one of
that's
you.
true. Good point. Welcome back, Josh, and a big welcome back to Sean Fennell.
Oh, yeah, dude.
We've missed you.
Yeah, I've
Jack,
been out for a while.
That's still bigger than mine.
Jack, good. Let's just keep showing up.
Thank you to me and Jason for always being here.
You guys are the Cal Ripken Juniors of the Nerdtastic.
Look at you dropping sport references.
Boom! It's the only one I know.
I definitely prefer Nolan Ryan.
No idea who that guy is. Who's
Nolan
that
Ryan.
dude? He played football?
He's a golf legend.
Yes.
Peyton Manning's dad. Too soon? Okay.
No idea what's going on right
You know what? Let's give one more shout out. Since we're giving shout outs, and hey, let's give a shout out to Golden Road.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Golden Road Brewery, our local brewery in here in town, supplying our, what are we drinking? Jay?
Hefeweizen.
Delicious warm Hefeweizen.
Yeah, even warm, this beer tastes really good.
That's saying something. Actually, we are drinking that above room temperature.
A warm Golden Road is better than a cold Samuel Adams any day.
Hey now.
Yeah.
There it is.
Jay
I
was
was
going to
waiting for
argue
Golden
his
Road to Golden
warm Natty
Shower.
Light story might
Yeah.
have topped it.
Natty Ice. This is definitely better than
That was
warm
not on
Natty
ice at all.
Natty water.
Yes. Natty piss.
So, folks, we're going to change. What are we doing? What happened? So, we're going to change some stuff up a bit, and something we discussed. Where this is almost, we're starting a new year for the show. Jay, does that sound about right?
We're coming up, and I think we're about 3 weeks away from our 1 year anniversary
crazy.
or something like that.
That in itself deserves a round of applause. And
we're still friends.
and we still kind of like each other.
I just met you guys, so
Give it a year.
Up for debate. Up for debate. But you know what? We're gonna try to do this Nerdtastic 2.0 style, and change some stuff up a bit, and try to get everybody really involved. And there's something me and Jason had talked about a lot, even in the beginning of the show, getting people involved, and start bringing you guys some different topics and topics that are really specific to them, and maybe just not stuff that me and Jason thinks are cool. Which, don't get me wrong, I think always wins over you guys at the end of the day.
Acceptable.
But other crazy stuff, starting with Mr. Fennel and this crazy ass MIT story
Yo.
about pulling power from
This
plants.
shit is crazy, yo. So,
Drop some knowledge
I
on
am
us,
desperate
buddy.
to have you clarify this article.
After my intro, yeah, please.
I'm trying. MIT. So, there are some researchers at MIT who have recently been able to extract electrons during a photosynthesis process, which is freaking incredible. They're actually extracting electricity from plants. Plant cells, anyway. Apparently, this research was started 8 years ago by a person named Gong Zhang, and I totally ruined that dude's name.
it sounded like you said it right.
I was just waiting for him to go into Gundam style.
You know they're playing that shit on the radio here in America all the time now?
We'll come back
That's
to that.
amazing.
We'll come
If you
back to
haven't
that.
looked up Oppa Gangnam Style, you need to. But no, so apparently they took these photosynthesis cells and injected them with a very, 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 very tiny microscopic gold lead. And after shining light on them, we're able to extract a small amount of electrons and actually produce voltage. So, obviously, it's a huge leap away from actually harnessing electricity directly from plants, but thinking, I don't know, 100 years in the future, if it's actually possible, how immensely amazing that would be to just be like, hey, I'm going to grow a tree and power my house, kind of thing.
See, I have like a major obsession with like the future, and I watch all those TV show specials and stuff, and I always see all this stuff, and then at the end of it, they're like, and you can expect to see this technology in like 50 years, and I'm like, I don't want to wait that long.
Can I get this tomorrow?
Yeah,
Freeze my
can I
head
print a new
and then-
heart?
Am I the only one who thought every pothead who read that story was like, oh, so I can get high and run my TV off my plants?
I think we got a new Keanu meme coming up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you fucking blew my mind.
So, Sean, if I understand the article correctly, there's two pieces of this that are amazing. Tell me if I'm understand this right. But part of it was the original research that goes into gold lead being put into plant cells, harnessing energy from that, which is an incredibly laborious, very hard task that could only be done in a certain lab with certain equipment. And then I also think there's a part of this, right, where there's an MIT researcher, Andreas Mershin, who expanded on that and made it so that that technology can actually be executed now in any high school level lab, right? Like part of the breakthrough of this was, hey, not only can you harness electricity from plants, but you can do this basically with any
anybody can do
generic
it.
chemistry set.
Right.
And I think that was also something that was very interesting to me, is not only are we trying to simulate this with these expert lab situations, but and super high end MIT grade people, but we're also doing it at a level where it's like, hey, basic chemicals in a basic lab, get yourself a Bunsen burner and you're all set.
Right.
Well, there's one thing, I mean, now that we've gone years into the future and stuff like that, there's so many things that conceptually and theoretically made sense before in the past, but now just years in the future and stuff have been able to become reality. Like, what was it, Tesla's
Connect?
like his engine or
Tesla's
something.
engine.
Tesla's Connect. Yeah, that's crazy.
Microsoft left that part out.
Damn. Yeah, like his engine is just.
You could fill a number of books with the fucking shit that Tesla came up with, man. That dude was a goddamn.
Yeah, and it was just too
genius.
expensive and just too crazy to be able to be built back then. Now it's it was all theoretically possible. Just like I'm sure thinking about photosynthesis, like going. Like, this article is like, yeah. I mean, it makes complete sense of like, yeah, duh. Like, this can totally happen. It's just, it's just kind of one of those things where
the fact that they're able to
in
scale
the
that
future
experiment down and make it more applicable to other people is going to make more people able to extend the research, which is that's a win, a huge win right there.
I'm curious about the process. It just in my head, being naive about this and thinking gold leads how to do this. I'm thinking about the millimeter style needle maybe that they have to use at that level.
I think they just whip plants with gold chains.
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that still S&M, or is that something all on its own level?
Don't be mean to green, yo.
Because I think of the needles they use, in your arms and when they do surgeries and stuff. But then at that level,
That's why they have to
level,
use gold, because they can actually get gold that small and it can still keep its shape. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. I got really I was excitable in the state that I read that article already, but it was pretty exciting to read that thing and just be like, wow, that's awesome, because it's literally a chemical process of converting sugar into energy, and they're able to extract that as electricity.
I'm on chemicals.
It's freaking awesome.
Chemicals.
But as an offshoot to that, so another thing that someone has discovered, actually I think this was a 8th grader that discovered this.
Fucking 8th graders.
Right? 8th graders, 7th graders, kids are crazy. They it's kind of along the lines of using nature as inspiration. This kid was doing little experiments with solar cells, and he mocked up this little solar cell panel on the roof, scale size of the roof of the house. This kid's in 8th grade. He
What was he doing on the roof?
worst
worst
right?
parents ever.
Well,
Let me just lay that down.
I would be trying to fly or some dumb
Yeah.
shit in 8th grade.
Don't let your
Jason,
kid
let's
on
go
the
up on the
roof.
roof. Okay, what are we doing? I don't know. Let's just jump.
What are we doing today, Pinky? Yeah. But so this kid is he was looking at trees and he was like, hey, you know what? All these leaves go around the branch in a spiral pattern. And he worked out that spiral pattern was actually the Fibonacci ratio, the golden ratio. So he built a solar cell that had that ratio built into it. And he said it got 75 or 80% more electricity and sun coverage than flat solar panels on your roof.
The fact
So
that
you-
that kid knew what the
Seriously!
golden ratio was
Seriously!
blows my
But he
mind.
didn't. I mean, it was just one of those pure genius moments, right? You always hear, I was looking in the clouds, I saw a shape, and that shape turned out. And I'm sure
The apple
high
hit
on
that
acid
sequence
and-
that sequence wasn't even on his mind. It
Kid
was
on
just
drugs.
this plant.
What's an 8th grader doing on his roof unless he's high on drugs? That's what I think happened.
The question could be, why aren't more kids high on drugs on the
Exactly.
roof looking
Yeah,
for the
if
same
that's what it
things?
produces,
The more you know.
Two kids high on the roof looking up into the stars.
One of those kids, Albert
more you
Einstein. The other, Martin Luther King Jr. Look at that. Huh?
Look it up. Fact, people. Fact. Wiki it.
I just modified the Wikipedia page.
We're doing it now. Nerdtastic is taking over Wikipedia. So let's keep moving on. Josh, the 720, Xbox's new console. What's the deal? Supposedly it's going to be held up.
Supposedly there's delays with the processing chip that they have being built. Basically, what's going on is, out of you can kind of equivalent it to a batch of cookies. You make a batch of cookies, it comes out of those 12 that you have made, one is actually edible. So they have to.
You're a crappy baker.
Well, hey,
Yeah, quite
Those
awful.
aren't
What
good
did
What did you
odds.
put in those other cookies?
Those aren't good odds.
How did you screw that up?
Exactly. But that's basically what's happening, and they're having to search out to other manufacturers. I think 3 or 4 other factories to
There's no
actually
rush.
make their processor.
What's the rush? There's no rush.
Learn from the first gen. learn about the what was the number on recalls? Do you remember?
Well, no, it's funny. You and I differ on this. It's 23% failure rate.
Okay.
Well, that was it was different.
Unfortunately, a big percentage were 3 of mine that I had to return.
But it was different because
we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
About how it was the best move.
It was the best move for them because
Super
all
smart.
3 of those consoles were coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was like getting, or right around the same time. Now you have the Wii U, which is they're basically the Wii U is catching up to what everything is now. And then you have
Sony's not putting anything out for 2, 3
exactly.
more years.
So there's no race.
They have a beast of a machine. That's not their problem.
Yeah, there's no race now. So it's like might as well make sure that it's actually getting
Their problem is people using their machine.
Are they trying
Yeah, no, totally.
exactly for the
They made
actual
a great
purpose.
machine.
Some
The
people-
problem is only Pecho uses it.
Exactly. It is my Blu-ray player. That's
Oh, yeah.
As it is
all
for anybody who
Exactly.
wants one.
I want
Even
to
if it's Blu-ray
nerd this up a bit and ask, like, are they trying to pack more transistors than they have into one of these chipset the size before, and that's why they're coming out?
I don't
wrong,
know
or-
why it's coming out wrong. I mean, they haven't gone any.
They didn't go into it in the.
They didn't.
in the
Yeah, they didn't
article.
go anything specific detail. They were just saying the failure rate of the batch that they were doing, and that just makes obviously supply down if the demand is high. So.
I call bullshit though on that because I have a theory that because all of these like shortages are always super manufactured by the console people because they want to sell out. Like you need to be on the news. As you sold out. Oh my god, it's Tickle Me Elmo. Nobody can find it anywhere around Christmas. So I think they start laying the groundwork now that they're going to have a limited supply. And then they're not going to have a full supply until 2014 anyways because it's supposed to be like
When's
September
it drop?
2013.
It's supposed to be
right?
like it's supposed to be like September of next year.
September next year.
Are they doing custom stuff, or is it because like the PS3 they did the cell
The
thing that made it
multi-dual
super expensive,
thing,
and then
yeah.
they said for PS4 they're doing all off the shelf parts, so they don't.
I think
have
it's
to
just
deal
off
with
the
it.
shelf. I don't think it's anything.
It's just to try and put it all together.
But it's like cutting edge. It's like bleeding edge.
Well, they
stuff,
did that
you know?
before, right? I mean, Microsoft stuff. It was all off the shelf stuff.
Yeah.
That wasn't its problem up front, right?
Yeah.
It was just
That
a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, like you're saying, that was just PS3 that did that. The IBM special chip that
Cell
they did.
processor.
And did you
the
say?
cell processor.
And did you say though that PlayStation is pushing theirs out another 2 or 3
I
years?
just can't see
is that
them.
what we've heard?
Yeah, their machine's so beefy right now, and they don't really. They haven't given the push. Like Xbox has definitely kind of been slowing down, and you. I mean, there's the new Gears of War game. There's the new Halo game. I'm talking more like first, second party stuff. But there's nothing being talked about beyond those, and everyone's kind of going like, we can read the writing on the wall, like it's easing up. Whereas Sony, they're not even.
I don't know though, because I could see Sony putting the PS4 out next year because there's been a lot of articles, a lot of talk about
They
they're
are
already
working
on it, So I don't know if it's gone into production yet, but
Well, Jason, when we were talking to a couple people at E3, that was the gist I got from my friend over at Naughty Dog that there potentially was a team working on something.
Well, they're always
That was
for sure.
You got to be ahead of the game. I
Yeah.
think the thing is when you look at the last gen, Microsoft, as great as it is, and I think the 360 is the best system of the generation, they really kind of screwed up the last generation by shipping the 360 about a year earlier than they should have. So it was like the last console cycle was a lot shorter than usual. It was like a year or two shorter because Microsoft rushed out the 360 to get a jump on Nintendo and Sony by a year, thinking, well, that's the only thing we can do. And so they were like, if you think about games like God of War 2, like these last few PS3 games that came out, last few PS2 games before the PS3 came out, they were like really good and they really had figured out how to use the PS2.
Right.
And before they could really spend that good year where you're making great games, they were like, well, on to the PS3 because we have to be out. We can't be 2 years away from Microsoft. So I could see Sony being pushed into it again where Microsoft's like, Nintendo's going to be out for a year, and who knows what that is.
I don't think they care anymore about them.
I wonder.
To some extent. I think there's a small percentage, but Jason, what do you think about this? I just feel like Nintendo realizes their niche market, and they've realized we're going to stick to this. Screw them. We're going to get our sales with people like Jay, who has tattooed homage on his arm. We're going to get these people to buy our games, and that's just our market. We're for kids. And let Sony and Microsoft sort of battle it out.
I think, there's no question in my mind that Microsoft has destroyed this console war. I think the Wii came out swinging for the fences, and it had impressive numbers when it first came out.
Killed it.
Yeah.
Xbox 360 just did month 22 atop the sales charts, which means it's almost 2 years top selling console. Combine that with Kinect sales on top, Microsoft has slaughtered this console war. And so I think, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you slightly here, Sean, but I think the success of that is entirely due to the fact that Microsoft came out first.
Oh, no, I think they did the right thing for them. I think the only negative is I think there were probably 10 great PS2 games that we never got to see
because they
came out.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about that.
Well, that's the one thing too. I'm sorry. Were you? I didn't mean to cut you. The one thing too that totally kind of I think really threw a wrench in the system is, the PS3 with its it's powerful as hell. It is super powerful, but the thing is, there's no games that utilize this, and because there was a different format, the fact you can use Blu-ray discs on a PS3 when you couldn't do that, like the Xbox uses normal DVDs, the storage capacity is greatly on the PS3
underutilized.
Exactly, it's very underutilized. So going back to what you were saying, like they're in no rush because I mean, theoretically, you could build a game that could be the same caliber or quality as whatever the next Xbox is going to be. And then like with sales, as you were saying too, and sales being top of the charts or whatever and stuff, like all those sales stuff, it's not necessarily how many Xboxes are sold into the person. They actually count it as how many the store has actually bought. So whenever you get the sales going, like we've sold 3 million, maybe 3 million haven't been sold out of the stores, but stores have bought 3 million of them and stuff like that too.
Well, which is a direct indication of consumer demand. I think for me, the 360's success comes down to squarely that Microsoft is doing things that are interesting to consumers. Like it's amazing to me to think back to like 1999, 2000, when there was all this talk about a media center PC. And it sort of fizzled, sort of went away. Like people weren't really doing it. You could buy a shuttle. I know you had one, Jack. And there were people that were experimenting with the idea, but really it just wasn't catching on. And here we are, 2012, and the game console has become a media center PC.
Oh, totally.
Where you can stream videos through it. You can upload videos to it if you want. Like it's really amazing to me that Sony has a superior product, but is doing less innovation with it. Like they have this awesome beefy machine, but then this is a horrible comparison. But if they've got the Ferrari and Microsoft has put out the Toyota Corolla, but the Toyota Corolla has Bluetooth and it's got the best sound system and it's got, what I mean, like as an analogy, It's got all these amazing features that really, who cares if the engine underneath is great if it's not being utilized in a cool way? And that's what Xbox has done well.
I think another, and I don't know if this is the right analogy, but the Ferrari for Sony is just like super hard to drive from what I hear. Like when developers started developing for PS3,
it was the same on PS2.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's extremely difficult to get use of that power in the right way. So I think hopefully if Sony learns something from this console generation and the last one, even though PS2 sold really really well, they'll learn that you got to make it easier to develop for it, or you're not going to get the right games.
Yeah.
Can you two speak to this? You guys were both on the console side of Disney at one point, right? So I had always heard a rumor that of the three consoles, a dev kit for the 360 was cheaper than the other two.
Yeah.
Can you guys speak to that at all?
It was. I think it was when Sony's first came out, they were a lot more expensive. And the other thing was that when you looked at what it took to build, I think it's partially that, but it's also, especially for a company like Disney that can afford all of them anyways, it didn't matter. I mean, we were making Wii and DS games mostly because that's where our market was. I think we released like 4 PS3 games, and it was just like, well, we're going to put it on the 360, and we might as well port it. But the big thing was also just the PS2 was incredibly difficult to develop for. The PS3 was incredibly difficult to develop for, so it takes devs like a long time to get ramped up and understand how to really utilize the power. So it's almost like me using Photoshop right now, where I'm using 5% of it. And these people were doing that on the PS2, and then they got to like 10% and 20%. And by the time they got to like 85, 90%, it was like, well, we're on to the next console generation, and now they're back to 5%, going like, what the hell is this cell processor we have no idea how to use?
Right.
Whereas Microsoft was a lot easier. It was, you didn't have to, everything's like a PC, so it was a lot easier to develop for. And even Nintendo, I hear, is relatively easy to develop for. And I think as middleware gets better and more people tend to go to like built-in engines, that's going to be different. Now that a lot of people are using Unreal and things like that, where they don't have to worry as much about building their own engine and build. That's going to change things a little bit. But I think when push comes to shove, Nintendo is competing with Apple now. They're not competing with Microsoft and Sony. And as much as they want, like the Wii U is trying to be a hardcore system. They're trying to, at least at E3, they were playing it up like, we're going to have Mass Effect 3. I'm like, that came out a year ago.
Exactly.
We're going to have this, this, and this. It's like they're making a system that's going to compete with Apple. The difference is people have it in their brains that every year they buy a new Apple product. And with Nintendo, I have a feeling you go to somebody and go, oh, hey, there's a new Wii. They're going to go, oh, I already got that. It's like, well, no, it's new. No, I have a Wii, and it sits in my closet, and I pull it out and I play it. Like, that whole, like, blue ocean that bought the Wii isn't going to buy a Wii U because they don't want it. They don't need it.
It's so interesting because Nintendo to me is totally, they seem lost at sea. Like, you come out with the Wii, and like I said, swinging for the fences, this amazing thing looked like, man, that's going to be some success for this company. And then whatever, everyone in the world bought one, I guess, and then they had no more market, and sales just dropped like a rock. And then you end up with, okay, well, what do we do next? And here's the 3DS. And 3DS was dramatically overpriced.
Yep.
And they had to take a huge loss on it to cut the price. And the next thing up is Wii. It just seems like every move they're making now is reactionary, whereas like the Wii was like, holy cow, this is game changing.
Well, you know what it reminds me of, honestly, is the band Radiohead. So like Radiohead had a niche audience, just like Nintendo. Like by GameCube days, there was a very niche people who love Nintendo games. They love Mario, and they're going to buy the next Nintendo system, like an Apple fan, only in far less numbers, right? Then Radiohead put out Kid A, and it was this crazy, weird record, and everyone was like, this is awesome, and everybody owned it that I knew. Like, everyone went out and bought it. But then when they put out their next record, that was kind of just another, like, Kid A, everyone's like, oh, we already kind of did that. And then they went back to being the niche. And I kind of feel like Nintendo's that, where they did the one big thing, but it was so much, like, it's only a one-trick pony there. There's nothing else you can do. You can't appeal to that audience again and again and again, releasing, because they don't, someone who buys the Wii isn't looking for the next big thing. They're like content, and the only way Apple is maybe the exception to that rule, and people do continue to buy new phones and new stuff like that, but I'd say it's the same. My mom is never going to buy a new iPad because she's kind of like, well, I got an iPad, and until that thing is like dead in the ground, she's not going to buy a new TV, a new VCR. She hasn't upgraded to a Blu-ray player.
So she's a practical consumer.
Exactly.
So do you guys think it's possible then that Nintendo goes the way of Sega and becomes a software company in the future?
No, I don't feel like my feeling on Nintendo is obviously the original Nintendo generation, who is sitting in this room, outgrew them at some point. Besides for very niche people. Jay, you're somebody who obviously is still a big fan, at least of franchises. I don't know if you still play those games. But outgrew that and wanted to go to something else. And the main gaming market now is the 30-somethings. If you talk to anybody, even my wife who sits in the Mattel board meetings and they talk about stuff, their market for video games and that is like the 30-somethings. Because they're the ones who have the money to spend for one, and we do spend it. If there's a game we want, we're not kids anymore. We just go out and fucking buy it. And that's why the market's there.
Because we can.
But then again, I'm back to Nintendo's market and realizing their market, I go back to Sean Fennell. I've been to Sean's house with his two sons, and they play the hell out of Mario.
Good God, they do.
So, I mean, Sean, talk about that. I mean, talk about, like, it's get played with that demographic.
Beat from the beginning all the way to the end, Super Mario Brothers for the Wii in one Saturday. I think it was like 7 hours.
And that's,
that's a beefy game. Yeah.
That's awesome. And they love the hell out of that thing. So I go over and I see that, and I'm like, cool. Because it reminds me of when we were kids. We love the hell out of the Nintendo. And that's why, the Wii, I hope when my daughter, will probably keep that thing for, like you're saying, it forever just sitting there collecting dust. But when she's old enough, that's probably what I'm going to sit there and teach her to play. I mean, those games like Wii Sports and stuff, that's fun for them.
I just think when I say stuff like that about Connor, there's like half of the people out there that are like, that kid's fucking awesome. And the other half are like, that is the worst father in the world.
Get him outside.
Way to go, parent.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
Do a jumping jack.
Both count.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I played video games, and so did Jay as a kid, and our parents let us, and now it's how we pay our rent. So, there's that side to the coin.
It's funny that you talk about the dev systems. When I started in games on Fight Club, our original dev for the game, our main focus was the PS2. We were doing Xbox and PS2, but the main focus was PS2. And sitting for a small startup, much like how you guys are over there, we were all in the same room, the artist and the engineers. And actually, one of my roommates was an engineer, so I got to hear from him. They fucking hated. They hated the PS2 people who came out to train them because we consistently had to talk to them to try to figure out how to even utilize their stuff. So there was a turning point about halfway through the game that was like, screw this. There's all this cool stuff that people were starting to utilize for the Xbox. One of the biggest ones was normal maps. And we went apeshit and literally remodeled everybody. And like we were able to tell, I remember telling the lead modeler, we sat down, they had this big meeting, and he's like, we could actually use this crazy program called ZBrush. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, they're like, go to town. Because whatever you do in there, no matter how high res you get, we're just going to use that as the map. And it was insane. Like what he was modeling, we're like, oh, hell, dude, that's like a fucking million polys. That ain't going in anything. And but what we were using the tech and turned to leverage towards the Xbox. So the Xbox version, when they gave out the games, when we finished to the artists and stuff, I didn't even have an Xbox. I was a PS2 guy, and I'm like, I just want the Xbox version. I'll have a friend who has it, and it'll look way cooler because I knew how it looked. If you put them side by side, dude, it was like night and day the look, and mostly because we couldn't. You're right, we couldn't leverage what that machine. Well, they had promised us what that machine could do, and Jay, you're right too. All of us, even if you didn't want one, had like an Xbox dev kit. I was pretty sure they were giving those away. And I know Josh.
And if you've never seen a dev kit too, like the PS2 one was massive.
Yeah,
And
it was huge.
The best thing about the
Looked like an
PS2
indigo.
one is what it says on it. It doesn't say, so like PS2, the side of it says PS2 in like these blocky letters, but the side of the dev kit just in giant letters says Tool.
Yeah, it's huge.
No joke.
Oh, that's
It's a
right.
giant
It did.
black
It said that.
box that says Tool on the side of it.
And the Xbox one looked like an
favorite thing.
Xbox.
Well,
it
it
just
did.
had a clear.
It was clear. It
was a
looked
clear
cooler.
thing.
No,
It
it
was
looked
really
cooler
cool.
than an
It was really
Xbox.
cool.
Was the best part about it. It looked like a cooler Xbox you could play on. And I also had a normal PS2, so I could play Tony Hawk on my desk. But that was cool on its own level.
Yeah.
Sticking on games, Jason, games are taking over Kickstarter. It seems like, right? What's the deal?
What is going on?
Well, what's amazing to me is the growth, right? Kickstarter in general has had a lot of growth, but Games was just announced, or Kickstarter just announced that Games was the #1 highest earning or highest funded category in all of Kickstarter. But what's amazing, so I think they said it did $50 million in 2012.
Million.
And the one, which was a huge jump, if I read it right, it went from, was it 12 or 15%?
Not even.
It went to
like
it was
6.
It was 3.6 million
okay.
in 2011. It was 500,000 in 2010. So from
games.
500,000 to 3.6 million is a big jump. 3.6 million to 50 million is a huge jump. And
So this is my question: do you think it would have been as successful if the first one that was successful wasn't?
no, I mean
From
Kickstarter.
Double Fine?
Kickstarter
Yeah.
said it. Double Fine was
Double
the
Fine, yeah.
catalyst.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah,
the one
it
that.
had to have been.
But
that
it's also
actually-
the right
Time.
place for it too. It's also like people who love games are on blogs, are on the internet. It's not like if you're trying to fund your literary magazine through Kickstarter, the audience isn't there. You should
I'm in.
probably,
Well,
And by the way, if you want to find reads with Sean Kearney, we got a goal of 20,000, and I've so far raised $15. Thank you, Pecho.
Out of
But
my
it's
own
also
wallet.
because it's a thing that is relatively not hindered on production in terms of like you have to mass manufacture this thing that I did this prototype for $20. Now I have to make 500,000 of them.
Yeah.
It's
How
also-
am I going to do this?
It's also not like those products that are out there, like the consoles that are going on Kickstarter, where you are really tied to that technology and being able to deliver that technology, which is a
Like the
nightmare,
Ouya?
probably.
Yeah, but see, like with me in general, though, I don't know how you guys are on Kickstarter. Actually, Games was sort of an afterthought on Kickstarter. Now, I heard about Kickstarter through Games, actually, but when I got into Kickstarter, and if you go to the website, which is fun, I found myself more into the tech crap being built and the design stuff being built than I was, Joe, who's going to make like a better Tetris. I was like,
Some of it I don't get though, like
Yeah.
the what is it, that watch, that smartwatch that like syncs with your iPhone, that they're getting like $10 million, and I'm like, why? Because it's ugly and it does the same thing your phone does, and you're just gonna use your
but it's
phone.
on your wrist.
But if you
Yeah.
look at the games that are making all the money on Kickstarter, they're not like brand new crazy ideas. They're rehashes, or they're big companies, or they're a little indie game that somebody wants to start, making into a
Or
bigger
they're
thing.
people with an idea who have a proven track record with nostalgia from your past.
I think
exactly.
that's the big one. Right?
Now,
That was
so
the
has
big
anyone in
draw.
the room bought in on Kickstarter? 'Cause
I've done-
I did the Double Fine one.
I've
and
done
I'm-
3.
And
all
I'm
video
doing
game
Wasteland
related.
too. So.
Oh, you're doing Wasteland
Yeah.
too? Wow.
You two and Jay and Kearney, you guys both did games as well.
Yeah, I did a game called Republic, which is like
Alright.
this it's like a hacking sort of. I'm obsessed with hacking.
No.
Hack the planet.
Hack the planet.
Hack the planet.
But it's just like a hacking game that it's like hacking action adventure sort of thing, kind of like that Watch Dogs game that Ubi
Which
was-
looks pretty
which
cool.
looks
Looked
amazing. I can't
looked
wait
really
for
good
it.
at E3.
But this is this game that's going to be. I think they're making it for PC, Mac, and iOS. So that was
No
the- That's
Linux.
really the only
No
one.
Linux.
No
No,
Linux.
no
really.
Linux.
Bastards.
But
I did a web series.
yeah, that's right. You did.
That's right. Video Game High School.
Oh, I did that too. So I did 3 video game related things.
Okay.
But they were Video Game High School. I did. I've only done one with somebody that I didn't know who personally was like, hey, can you donate to my
attached.
thing?
Okay.
And that was the only actual game, which was a board game by a guy, Zach Gage, who made Spell Tower, which is a cool iPhone game. And he has a competitive eating Wild West board game. And I was just like, I can't pass that up.
That sounds awesome.
So I did that.
That's just when I think where's Alan Stetson? That just sounds like a board game up his alley.
It sounded super cool. So I did that, and I did Video Game High School because a guy that I used to work with on the console side's a producer on it or something. And
Okay.
I gotta give
and
one more
then-
plug too. One I did was Octodad.
yeah.
The Deadliest Catch, which is a couple of my buddies from college who are making this game, and it's super fucking
It's really
awesome.
cool.
And the one thing too that helps you kind of put more money to it as well is because of the tiers. It's just like getting like the Black Ops Hardened Edition,
Right,
the blah,
right.
blah,
Yeah,
you know, you
absolutely,
get more.
right.
So it's like, okay, this game may be like $10, but if I get 15, I get this kind of cool little extra shit. Might as well throw in.
Do you get a
10
helicopter?
$5 extra bucks. Or something.
No, you get nothing that flies.
That's all I'm saying.
But I will say, like with Zach Gage's thing, it was like $25, and I got the board game, and I was like, well, I'd buy this. So it's just a way for me to like
Right.
pre-buy,
Which is
something
why
I'm going to buy anyways.
I was going to do the Instacube that we talked about last week for that reason. Like, I think that's an awesome little product, and I think I might just buy one just to have one.
Exactly. So why not do it then? And that's why I think people like Double Fine have the right idea because they make niche games. And so they can't go to a publisher anymore and go, we want to make this big game, because they're going to go, well, no, you have a very niche audience. People don't play adventure games as much as
Right.
a giant publisher would want them to in order to like publish their game. So they can go, well, check this out. We've got a petition with all these people who said, yeah, they're going to buy our shit.
That's why everyone's
Put it
getting
out there.
stupider, by the way.
Here's
They
the-
don't play adventure
Here's the
games
real
anymore.
totally. I think this is a real question though. Is with that kind of growth, all eyes are on all eyes for independent developers, particularly for games, are on Kickstarter. So now have we reached that point, like the App Store on the Apple App Store, where it's just noise?
Oh, it's over. It's like the
you know
gold
what I mean?
rush is over.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I'm wondering. Like, have you missed that boat of really being able to make some?
Well, I think the even bigger thing, and especially for guys like Double Fine, is I don't know if I'd rather be beholden to a publisher or beholden to the unwashed masses of the internet. Like, how much is it going to
Good
suck
question.
now when
Good
they put
question.
out their game?
That's some pretty hard
and
critics
everybody
right there.
who's criticizing you is going, well, I'm a producer. I produced this game because I gave you $50 and I don't like this character's name. Like, I don't know if I trust people on the internet enough to ask them for money and then be responsible for their, like, because now I have to listen to what they say,
Right.
at least partially.
Do you have
Let's
to?
just ask B what they think.
Still ignore my
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. I mean, that leads into obviously the bigger question of Kickstarter, which is something Josh posted. I believe Josh posted.
Which one?
Yeah, he did.
What happens
about
when they don't
with
deliver?
Kickstarter in general. What if they
Oh,
don't
yeah,
deliver?
what if
Which I
they
found
don't
that
deliver?
we've asked this question actually on the show many times. Matter of fact, we've asked this question
To all of our
guests,
Kickstarter guests, yeah.
which we've had a couple guests who have Kickstarter projects, and none of them can answer. And as it turns out,
It's
neither could
pretty
anybody else on
Yeah,
Kickstarter. Really,
nobody can.
Well, I've come to the conclusion that it's pretty much what you'd think it is. You're just not going to get what you paid for.
yeah,
No,
Josh.
don't you get your... Oh, if it gets
You
funded?
don't
If it gets-
know
if it gets
funded.
if
If
it
they
gets
don't
funded.
deliver,
Josh,
there's-
talk about it.
There is zero liability to Kickstarter because one, they don't deal with the money. It goes through Amazon payments, so it goes through that. So it's like they were saying, say it doesn't get funded, or you have delays or something. Some people do the right thing and go like, hey, we've had a delay. We're going to refund you. Say, if you did $10, we're going to refund you $3. And people have done that, but they have to personally then out of their account, their Amazon account that they've created, have to then personally go one by one and refund these people. But there is at
it's
the
a
same
good
time,
faith.
and that's exactly what it
scenario.
is. There's no accountability, And there's nobody stopping anyone to sit there and go like,
Well,
I have this amazing computer that I can build and you can have for $10.
So I can imagine like the government using this as a way in to like legislate the internet now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have to legislate it now because you guys are getting robbed.
But isn't it your risk? You know, if you're going to throw $100 at the Ouya, isn't it your risk that might never get
Absolutely.
made?
That
Pretty
was
much, yeah,
that
you're
was,
an investor.
That
at
was
that point.
Kickstarter's thing on their website that they said is it's actually like different from a risk adverse investing strategy like a venture capitalist firm or something. This is prone to risk. This is what we are. I mean,
it's massively distributed capital.
exactly, and it is 100% up to the individual investors to decide what's credible, what's not, who has a track record, who doesn't. Like I think that's part of the interesting thing is the separation of who invests in ideas versus who invests in people with ideas. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big, big difference. Like I think the reason Double Fine got funded, they didn't have an idea. No. You're investing in
Their ability.
the guys, and knowing their history and that they've come through for us nostalgic-wise in the past. You're not investing. They have no idea. Some random adventure game.
One of those Norwegians are going to get on there. Not Norwegians. The Nigerians are going to get on there and be like, "Hey, we got this awesome idea for a game. You just give us your 14 million pounds, and we will deliver
give you
you
14
million.
million.
Yes,
Put in your bank account.
No, you give me, and then I'll give it to you.
This is the best Kickstarter idea ever.
Isn't it
You
really?
give us 10, we'll give you $1 million.
No, it's really that it's going to be a Nigerian prince he's got an idea. He wants to be kickstarted out of jail, but he needs to raise some funds.
Exactly right.
But the big thing is, especially with the Double Fine, is it's not. It comes across less as an investment because there's no real return on the investment. In like, if the Double Fine game does great, I'm not going to get anything more. Like at a certain point, I'm just buying, and so that's where I think where it's dead.
Maybe the word investment
is
the weird
it's
thing.
a weird one because what you're really doing with Double Fine is the
Funding.
charm.
You're
If
funding.
like, yeah, I funded this. One, you're doing it to get the thing or the cool reward. And then two, you're getting it because it's like, oh yeah, I was part of that thing. Like I helped. It's like it's like giving $5 to a presidential candidate when like that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. No matter how many times they tell you that, it means nothing. But you're like, no, I was there. I helped.
I bought a soda for the president.
But yeah,
He'll
exactly.
take that from me.
If they're able to actually deliver on the promises that they've made, like they've clearly stated, the more money that we're able to raise, the more we're going to put into the game. We're not going to take it for ourselves.
Well, and what's really funny is when someone goes like Double Fine again, or even the Ouya, where they like fund way above and beyond what they needed, and then they're like, "Crap, we got to throw some more features into this." thing.
Feature creep from the money you're getting.
Right. It's like, oh well, now we have to go way above and beyond scope.
All right, let's build another engine.
Or do they?
The nice thing, though, is
Yeah.
it takes a year or two, and maybe you'll forget that you invested
totally.
in the product if it fails.
Yeah, like
Well,
I'm
there's
gonna get the game and be like, what is this?
What is-
I
yeah,
don't
what-
remember
I
2 years.
I think being logical, though, and doing some research also goes a long way, too. And anybody listening who gets into Kickstarter, please, for the love of Christ, read the page, watch the video, look for any Photoshop,
Google
maybe.
the guy, maybe.
Yeah, like, this is the game we're making, but it's clearly they just shot some live action. It's not going to look like that.
The manager of my apartment building, and I only say this, he's a nice guy, and I only say this because I know that he has no idea what a podcast is, and he'll never listen to this, has a Kickstarter, and he was having me help him create it. Because I work in video games, so obviously I know, everything there is. He's like, hey, do you know what Kickstarter is? And I was like, oh yeah, a couple of my buddies have done it, and like it funded their stuff. It seemed cool. And he's making a documentary, and he was going to go on Kickstarter and raise money. And he said, well, hey, can you help me set up the page? And I was like, I've never used it before. I was like, I literally clicked on a link on Facebook and then donated, put my credit card info in. And that was it. And he's like, okay, cool. So I'm going to have a guy call you. And this guy's called me.
Are
He's
you
called me
kidding
at
me?
work. No, multiple times this guy's called me.
To be the Kickstarter guy?
To figure out, like, how do I post this? How do I post that? And when I heard one night at like 2 a.m, I'm coming home from work. We've been crunching all day. And he goes, hey, you got a minute? Come into my apartment. And he stands there for an hour and explains to me what he's doing for Kickstarter. And these are his tiers. And this is where I didn't know what to say to this nice old man. His tiers are, he's making a documentary. So first off, you should, like, at $10, just give me the movie, right? Like, that's the logical thing. Oh no, you get the movie at $150. At $10, you get a credit. At $5, you get nothing. At $15, you get a hat. And then at $100, you don't get the movie. But I swear to God, this is what you get. At $100, you get a signed picture by the actor. I can't even remember his name. The actor who played the lead in Airplane. Robert something, because he happens to know the guy. And you get a signed picture, and he goes,
he's in it.
"No, he has nothing to do with the movie. I swear to God, he has nothing to do with the movie at all." But you get a signed picture, and the thing is, it's like, hey, and it'll be signed to your name, your wife's name, whatever name you want. That's $100. And I said, yeah, usually what people do is if you're making something, you give the thing that you're making, that seems like the logical thing. And he goes, good idea. And he goes, hey, so at $150, you get the movie.
The most expensive DVD ever.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that's the problem with Kickstarter. It's just like the App Store. There's some amazing things on it, and then there is an overwhelming amount of garbage. And that's what happens when you open something up to everybody, is you kind of get the rare nuggets of awesomeness, and then you get like the everyday nuggets of poop.
But that's also why I don't think the gold rush, well, we're calling it a gold rush, but like I think this even stays true to the App Store. If it's a good fucking app,
no,
you're still gonna buy it, right?
I don't know. There's some amazing apps out there that I guarantee have like not done very well, not sold very well,
but are really good.
Yeah, interesting ideas. I think so much of this now comes to marketing costs. Marketing, you guys have experienced this. Marketing a game or a product is really about cutting through noise. Mm-hmm. It's about who can be heard and seen the loudest and the most. And then hopefully once it's seen and it gains word of mouth, that thing has a life of its own. Yeah. But that's what marketing's all about, cut through noise.
Yeah. But I think the App Store too also has the problem of if you're a niche game or a game made for maybe more hardcore players, you're never going to get through the casual noise because there's so many people buying these other games and apps that you have to be like an infinity blade to even see any time on the top of the charts.
Right.
Wow.
Jack, I'm going to spin this around on you for a second.
Okay.
You posted something. There's been an incredible tragedy in our industry that's happened this week.
Yeah, two things with said company.
Tragedy.
Unfortunately, this last week, Digital Domain Holdings closed their Port St. Lucie studio and locked the doors on over 300 employees, only keeping 20 to transition out. Meaning the studio that was put in a spot of Florida where there is no other entertainment industry jobs, period, for probably, a couple 100 miles, all had no jobs. All had no rent money, all had no mortgage money, and a lot of them had kids. This is a company I worked for here in Venice, and obviously you hear that, and it makes me instantly worry about the people and the families there who were in Port St. Lucie who lost their job. But it also makes me think about my friends who are in Venice, where they stated originally in the beginning of the week, we are just closing this, and part of the downfall to that is they in the last year went public as a public company. They were a private company. And when they went public, you now are not on the hook for said CEO who's keeping things going and can keep asking for money and just get crazy. Now you're on the hook to a board who has no ties to any of the employees at that company, has no ties to anybody. Their only tie is we make money, which is very, we talked about Apple and how I felt about Cook's response to his artists instead of being honest and saying, hey, we did this for money. They said, this is about money. We're hemorrhaging way more money than originally we thought, because part of the deal for them being in Port St. Lucie, I think we talked about it at one point, is the state of Florida gave them money. The city of Port St. Lucie gave them over 60 acres and $20 million. They started defaulting on loans, and basically the board stepped in and said, you need to close this. Now, the man who was running the company, John Texter, he was shady in his own right and actually came in with Windcrest Holdings while I was at DD Venice. Actually, him and that company is a conglomerate of Michael Bay's part of that company, Dan Marino, who, as a kid, I loved the Dolphins, so I was a huge fan of that. It made no sense at all. And he brought his isotoners.
It's Ventura, baby.
There was a little scary behind that company coming in, and if you had researched the company beforehand, what they typically would end up happening, they'd buy a company and shit would just go sour. And when all this went down, there was a lot of backlash on him specifically. John Texter ran this, whatever. And I'm very confident that behind the scenes, money went to different spots. But as I dug deeper to really understand why the hell, because on the surface, in my eyes, and I'll go around and ask you guys this after, is if you were going to start you want to do an animated feature, if you had a state willing to give you, I think the total overall was going to be $75 million, a facility. You were coming from a studio that has been around since one of the first visual effects companies in LA. You hired the entire lighting staff from Sony New Mexico, who got let off from Sony, and you just picked them all up and brought their pipeline. You were handed basically the keys of the kingdom to start an animated feature. I mean, studios have started with far less and finished it. So in my eyes, I'm like, shit, they had 2 Disney 2D animators were leading the directors, were the directors for the film. Project sounded great. So on surface, everything, they were still hiring people. Friends of mine at said company I work for had talked to them about even going down. One of the guys, me, all of us who are at DreamWorks worked with, Henry Rivera went down, left DreamWorks to take a job down there. They all left, for that dream down there to do this, and on surface it seemed like this was going to be a good thing. So all of a sudden, for them to pull the cord, as I dug deeper to find out why, John Texter's resignation letter came up, and part of that letter stated, which I was actually very surprised because I expected him to just maybe be the douche that everybody's making him out to be, was him basically saying, I don't agree with what the board was doing. The board had came down to him earlier saying, hey, you need to shut it down, and him saying, you can't fire
280 people.
There's people still coming in who have quit their jobs. They're flying in on Monday. You can't lock the doors on these people. You need to finish the funding. We have the state of Florida is trusting us to do this, let alone the city of Port St. Lucie, who we've hired their people. You need to do this. I don't agree with you. For those reasons, I'm leaving. That was probably the last thing I expected to read from him. And this, for people listening, he had wrote this obviously before all this crap went down. So this wasn't a media response to what was happening and I need to save face. On the surface of this letter, he's basically saying, I don't agree with the board. So the board shuts him down earlier in the week. Week goes on. As of yesterday, I believe, is when this got posted, DD Holdings filed bankruptcy, total, which now includes Vancouver and Venice. To dive deeper, a little sidebar to this, which I didn't know. Now, I worked in the Venice studio, and they own a big block off Rose Street in Venice. It's an amazing location, a couple blocks off the ocean. And then right across the street from them is they own this huge building, which was their commercials division. And this is their buildings also on the main building block is also where the famous Gold's Gym for Venice Beach is. Hulk Hogan, the Hulk, Lou Ferrigno, all those people all worked out there. Google conveniently first bought the entire block on the other side where commercials was. Now, I just learned this recently, that the commercial division for DD moved over to Playa Vista, California, where actually COD XP was held last year. Rhythm Hughes used to be. I used to live over in that area along the coast. It's probably about 25, 30 minutes away. So they bought that entire thing. So they kicked them out. And actually, I think now where DD Commercials is now where the commissary is for Google there. What I didn't know is that DD had been trying to buy the land they were on for some time. And it was very clear since Rich Ross owned them that we want to buy this land instead of leasing it like they had been. And the owner was very adamant about...
Who owns?
Rich Ross used to own Digital Domain. He sold that to Windcrest. And both owners were trying to buy the land.
Rich Ross?
Isn't it Rich Ross?
The Disney guy?
No, it's...
former chairman of Walt Disney Studios.
I'll post it up. It's something like that, though. Owned the company and then sold it off. And then... Scott Ross. I'm sorry. It's Scott Ross. And... they tried to buy it, and the owner would never do it. I think not too long ago, basically when they went back in to re-up the lease, and the guy was very nice once again, but said, oh, no, I can't. Google bought you. Google not only bought that little portion, they bought the entire block, including Gold's Gym, which now is gone. I just learned recently. They're kicking all of them out, so DD needs to go find a new home. And Google is petitioning to close the street off.
Gold's Gym, isn't that where Arnold,
Yeah, that's Arnold's place.
Yeah. They're actually petitioning to get rid of the fucking street.
Wow.
That's there between the two, so that they
make
can
Google
merge.
land.
Does Google really have that much money that
Yes.
they can just fucking close streets? And
Now,
shit?
for people who don't live in California,
Insane.
when I said a couple blocks off the beach in Venice in a main location off Main Street, I can't fathom. They bought a block. Matter of fact, they bought 2 blocks off Main Street, and they want to use even more money to close an entire street off to their own.
and it's not even their main campus. Like, that's the funniest thing.
No, I mean, they have a small Santa Monica office.
Yeah.
This is gonna trump that.
But I mean, their main
down.
campus is up north. Anyways,
Right.
So it's not even. This is like for their like secondary.
This will be
home.
their beach hangout. I'm not sure what the idea is behind this, but it's for our industry. You know, part of this too, and the Digital Domain's whole motto for what they were doing down there was they had started a school with FSU, Florida State University in West Palm, to start kids through the program. As they hit a certain point in the program, they would transition to DD Port St. Lucie and work on the films as interns, it said. And it was a big hoopla that they're getting free labor from these kids. And we talked about on the show, and we can go either way on that, but that was part of probably why these kids started that school. Now, they have conveniently left that school open because, as we all know, that's just free damn money. And I'm sure they're still going to get a good education. But now you have to tell those kids, that film, that's not going to happen because our industry can suck ass sometimes. And at the end of the day, it's so tough for me to hold in that we keep getting these reminders of how bad. And this includes games, too. And I'm sure you guys can chime in.
And really
Sean and
quick,
Jay.
didn't Searchlight then buy...
They did. They stepped in when they filed bankruptcy,
DD,
right? For $15 million, which the company was said to be worth $135 million. So to say they got a deal is an understatement. Now, what is funny with Searchlight, if you look them up, their main business model is a cable station in Puerto Rico. So go DD. They're and they also promoted the head of commercials to CEO of the entire company. So we'll see what happens with that.
So Jack, how did, like, from what I know of Digital Domain, like I have a couple friends in animation as well, and they looked at Digital Domain as like the pinnacle of like 3D animation for certain things. I don't know that much about them. How do they go bankrupt?
It's Effects House suck. VFX House as a business model is horrible. It is absolutely atrocious. DD was huge at the time because they were doing like Titanic. Like they were doing all of these big name, massive things, and then Michael Bay came in, and partnered with them too, and then they started doing all this stuff. But the more you start becoming bigger, the more shit ton of overhead you have. And you're getting outbidded by 5 kids in their garage that can do the exact same thing. You buy some systems, you buy some servers, some processors and stuff like that. You can output just as well as they can too, for super amounts of cheap. And then all of a sudden these little garages of 5 people started becoming 10 and going like, hey, if we just had 10 more people here, we can get 10 times the work done. So then they start doing that, and then they start becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and more overhead, and all of a sudden then they're getting outbidded by these people, and then it just becomes such a cutthroat thing that it's horrible. Any effects house is horrible, and that's why Jack's saying the only basically when it comes to movie wise, this company has worked on 2 shots in that entire movie. This was a 350 effects shot movie. You got 2 of them. And then like that was it. But the commercial division, you have the commercial.
Well, that was their lifespan. Their bread and butter was their commercial division. Matter of fact, for a long time, any car commercial you saw, even ones you would probably think were real cars, were CG cars. They did. Matter of fact, they niched the hell out of it. And when I was at Asylum Effects, we tried to break into that, and they just owned it. Yeah. I mean, Cadillac, GM, Ford. If it was a car commercial, DD did it, and that model actually is profitable. And matter of fact, that model kept that studio afloat because the effects division for film is non-profitable. And anybody will tell you that the majority of reasons why they'll keep doing that is that is the bread and butter name to the studio. That is they're known for that. They're known. They won the visual effects Oscar for Benjamin Button. They're known for a brand. Right. But the commercials are where it's quick turnaround for a lot of money, and the small studios can stay afloat because they do commercials. Right. I just think between how much potentially, and this is back to, I don't know behind the scenes, what he was doing with their capital they had overall, something was happening to money. And it clearly was not all going to the employees down in Florida to keep that afloat. And I think as time goes on, that'll probably come to the surface. But yeah, Jay, I mean, what are your thoughts on all this?
So there are two thoughts I wanted to mention. One is, I think, a lot of times we use the analogy that games and animation visual effects are similar in a lot of ways, and they are. I mean, there are a lot of very similar. Their technology to drive graphics a lot of times these days. I think one of the places where it differs is there's so few animation and VFX houses these days, and there are
in the
more
States.
and more and more game studios popping up. And so while it's never a good thing to hear about any group of people losing their jobs ever, to a certain degree when it happens in games it really sucks, but there are 6-7 major cities in the US that have 90 100 plus game studios per city. So somewhere those people probably land on their... You're talking about less than 24 VFX and animation companies worldwide. Successful ones. And so when one closes, it's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. Because now all of a sudden there's an influx of 500 really talented people that are potentially out of jobs. Which means, hey, if I want to go for a promotion, there may be somebody else, honestly far more talented than me, that suddenly would go for a job he might normally not be interested in.
And they were all transplants.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too I wanted to talk about is I can't help but focus on the people aspect of this. And like you mentioned, Jack, we
posted some stories, on our Facebook page, so please read some just to get perspective. But yeah, Jay, go ahead.
Well, we have good friends who packed up their lives, sold their houses, moved their kids, moved their wives. And no matter how much you love or don't love this industry, I think at least my mindset is, and I love the work that I do. I will always put my family before my job. And the fact that people moved their family, which is in most people's scenario, not all, but most people, their number one priority in life, moved that to get this, this job, to take this job. And then, Jack, I think another one that you mentioned that's interesting is there are people still today, like probably planning on catching flights this Friday, that are going to move out there.
The main story that I read and I posted on Facebook was a production accountant. It was a woman who was coming down, and I just found out coming down for a $45,000 a year job, left her job in New Hampshire, husband quit her job, packed up the 2 kids, sold everything. They only had the money that was in the bank from selling their stuff, which wasn't a lot. Showed up, got about an hour outside on the drive. They've been driving for 2 days, and the relocation person called and said, "Has HR called you?" They're like, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" As they were pulling into town, the HR person finally got a hold of them to explain what was happening because they had showed up at the studio. They couldn't get in. They had no money. They had no nothing. She has no job. She has no... Literally, I'm sitting at my desk starting to tear up reading the story because it just... it's one thing for us in LA when this happens, and most of us in this room has been in a spot where we've seen things go under. Josh has a great one where he was doing game cinematics, and it started to implode on itself. I mean, we've all sort of been there, but when you're in LA... It is. We'll call it. It's not a mecca anymore like it used to be, but it is. It is a safe haven for some industry effects people and game people. I'm pretty confident in myself, and I'm sure Sean is, and the rest of us, that we maybe at least in LA could hopefully get a job. I'm using all these terms like hopefully and whatnot, but the odds are higher. Let's put it that way. There's nothing there, nothing other than them all packing up to come back and compete for jobs we already have.
Well, I don't want to get too serious about this, but
Shouldn't have done that. He just a boy.
Seriously, thank you for that. I needed a smile because I was getting fucking depressed as hell.
The worst note to end on in any podcast.
Yay!
I mean, I think there's something. I mean, you hate to pin this all on somebody, but Jack, you were alluding to this, but didn't quite spit it out, which is something's been going on for a while, and you started a whole studio moving people completely across the country as a CEO, let's say the CEO, knowing something's going on, and you're not being honest with people, still having your recruiting team and your HR team hire people, telling them to hire, knowing that next week we may be closing the doors on this place.
I don't think those people knew.
It takes a lot for me to swear, but that guy is a son of a bitch. That I want to punch that guy. And I have a few friends that moved out there for this, but just what kind of a jerk are you that you can, or the board members that can place my own monetary growth over the livelihoods of 400 people?
I'm with you.
Like,
fucked
that
up.
just kills me. What human being can go to sleep at night doing that? I'm sorry, I'm being extreme about it, but
They go to sleep on giant piles of money.
Exactly.
Well, to keep this in full circle with the industry and keep talking about a bit about this, and almost back to Jay, what you were saying about like how could this happen, how they could file bankruptcy. The big focus, and it's had me thinking about this lately, about the election and about the big thing about jobs and whatnot. And what sort of irks me, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this, is that the main job focus for both sides is always getting those damn construction workers back to work. Because I personally only know one contractor as a friend. I don't know where these other hundreds of thousands of people, I guess, exist who I guess do build the roads and what. But supposedly they're the ones who build this country financially. They're the ones who keep Walmart afloat, which then keeps this person afloat, and then they buy our movies, and it's this weird trickle effect, right? At least this is how I'm trying to rationalize it so I can sleep at night. Whereas everyone in this room, well, maybe not as much games. Games is having a nice resurgence, especially because of the mobile market. But in our visual effects industry and animation, we have watched our entire industry get outsourced.
Eat itself alive.
I mean, literally, Foxconn is in Vancouver and London and China now, and it's becoming insane. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day.
We don't even make movies in LA anymore.
No, and the conversation
Nothing
with
is
them,
shot
with
here.
their studio was, we have to tell clients now that we are building a studio in Vancouver to even bid on the project. The company Sci-Fi would not let them bid on the project unless they knew they had a sister company in Vancouver, because Sci-Fi is being forced to shoot in Vancouver because of the tax break they're getting to be there. And part of the tax break is if they want the effects for their Sci-Fi special, it has to stay in Vancouver. So companies like Digital Domain, they have a Vancouver office. Matter of fact, every studio here in Los Angeles, visual effects-wise, has one in Vancouver. And they've done it in London, too, because Britain does the same thing with the tax credit.
even Pixar.
Why has there not been any kind of focus to keep what has made, in my opinion, one of the staples of America, which is America cinema, to keep that work here?
Well,
that
even-
has not
even-
been a fucking talk at
there's
all,
the-
in my opinion.
The article that was in the Times about like TV dramas, out of the 28 dramas, 1 hour long dramas that are shot, out of 28, 2 were filmed in LA. Only 2. So 20 out of all that, the only thing that is shot here in LA besides those 2 dramas are comedy shows. Half-hour comedy shows, and then...
And those are all Canadians acting in the comedy shows. What's going on?
And then some like reality shows, but yeah.
Sean, what are your thoughts on this? Like, back, you can touch on the DD stuff. You can touch on how I'm bitching about the political state of affairs right now.
I remember reading an article 7 years ago. So we've known about this problem for at least 7 years, where the profit margin for visual effects studios is between 0 and 7%. You can't make money doing that. I mean, if you put your 401k into 7%, maybe you could retire on that. Maybe. And that's like a pretty big maybe. So there are people that are trying to make a living, and studios that are trying to stay afloat, knowing that they're never going to make money in this job.
Yeah, it's a horrible business.
It really sucks. And what's really depressing is when election time comes around, everyone's always talking all this fluff about like really, really big world issues that they're never going to care about when they get in office. And I hate it. I hate all the lies. I can't watch any of the debates because it's just a bunch of non-answer bullshit, and it annoys the hell out of me. I'm one of those guys that are like, I don't want the fluff. I don't watch dramas because it's talking heads. I hate that shit. Give me facts and give me entertainment. That's what I care about, and I don't see that anywhere anymore. I feel like our entire country has decided to, instead of just let's be honest and true with each other and stand up for America, it's kind of just like, well, I don't want to do that. And it's annoying. I'm annoyed.
Isn't it politics in general?
That's why I hate most people.
Because that's like
in general.
I feel like that is the political thing. It's just like I haven't followed pretty much any of this year's election. In 2008, I tried to follow as much as I could, and then as soon as the election was over, it was just back to normal. And it was like everything that was this whole thing that happened was just this big stage play for everybody in the United States to go, we have a president, we have elected him, and now it's like, okay, now back to just being a normal person who probably won't get their voice heard anyway.
See, I have my perspective. I think Obama did a better job than most maintaining the momentum he had. Like, I think he came into the first year of his presidency carrying some real political power. And I think he accomplished a couple of things in his first year that honestly, like, he couldn't have done without the momentum that he carried into it. And then I feel exactly what you're saying. And then it's like he died. Mm-hmm. And it's like whether it's the Congress is Republican and he couldn't get anything passed, whatever you want to call it.
The thing that bugs me the most is that I see all these news anchors and stuff on TV being like, "Well, Obama, he took down Osama bin Laden." I'm like, who fucking cares? What was he doing that was so revolutionary?
He was
when
keeping
we finally took him down?
Keeping our joblessness percentage
yeah, but
very high.
the fact that like the fact that Fox and all these other companies are like, well, he clearly did this, so he's definitely going to be like the strong runner in the election.
Well, that's not
really?
Fox.
It's
the other station. Fox is the opposite. We're pretty sure Osama bin Laden's alive, and he's lying to us.
Exactly.
We're pretty sure he is Osama bin Laden.
Exactly.
Look at his birth certificate.
I want to see the birth certificate.
Yeah.
But I do think a big thing also is that it's also, when it comes to national politics, like, the one thing I will say, not to contradict anything, but just the one thing I will say is that when you look at the people who are building the roads and those sort of people, like, we do live in a weird world when you live in a major city like LA or New York or Chicago, where when you look at it, those guys that are out of work, who are doing things like that, probably all of us in this room make at least twice what those guys make. So it is, and there is a problem there, they are an easier one. Like, it's an easier sob story instantly. And there's more of them than there are us, like, period. And so I do think I've always kind of heard this with, whenever, like, box office will come up for movies, I'll look at, like, movies every once in a while and be like, how the hell is this movie number 1 and this movie's number 10? And I have a buddy who works at a film studio, and he's just like, dude, we live in LA. We are literally out of touch with everything that's going on in about 35 or 40 states. Because we just live in a different world where there's just different things. You know what I mean? Like, there are Walmarts here.
Fantasy
we don't
land
live in that.
No, sure.
You know.
And I can go back and argue that I'm blaming the government, talking about specifically our industry, but I could really go back specifically to our state, because
exactly
what Josh is saying, like,
that's where the problem
it's not
is.
so much all the shows are filmed out of country, but now you have states like Florida, what they did with ports. Detroit's huge now.
Yeah.
Detroit's giving, good for them, dude. I mean, Michigan's giving them huge tax.
Louisiana.
What the hell is wrong with our state,
New
which
York
was
does, too.
the city was founded on? We don't
And
have
the
anybody
worst
trying to
is
give
we have a
us break?
state that for 6 years before the last governor was run by an actor, producer, director. Like, that's where I thought the flaw was, is that if there was anything good that would have come out of that crazy son of a bitch being governor of a state, it would be like, well, at least he
Revitalizing our
understands the entertainment
Expendables 2.
industry. And and that's the best thing he's done. But yeah, that's the
Touche.
big thing. Is like, I think looking at, like, Obama doesn't give a shit about California, and if I was Obama, I wouldn't either. We're gonna vote for him.
Which is funny because his biggest contributor,
totally,
hands down, individual contributor. You know who is, right?
It's Weinstein, right?
No, it's our CEO, Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Oh, it's Katzenberg.
Yeah.
So in
Really?
my head, and he's not a dumb individual. In my head, I have to think there has to be a talk at some point, like, and I don't know, and I'm saying this not knowing, so this is just me, that maybe there was some brokerage to make sure the China deal went through as well as it did, or something. Because to me, it's clearly not, let's just keep the work here in the States or in California.
Well, there's other things.
You know,
There's a
I
guy
don't
like
know. I'm
Katzenberg.
speculating. So,
But a guy like Katzenberg isn't completely concerned with California as much as he's concerned with everything in the U.S. that revolves around the motion picture associations, like the idea of films, like making sure that we aren't, like, censoring movies or whatever the thing of the day.
well, and that's what I'm saying.
know.
Behind the
That's
scenes,
because I think it's because Katzenberg is directly attacking piracy.
And yeah, things like that I think
Okay.
are more on
Okay.
Katzenberg's radar
He-
than DreamWorks closing down. You know what I mean?
So we're wrapping up. We're getting close to time. Obviously, you know, we could do a whole damn show probably talking politics.
Not me.
Yeah, Sean's fuck those guys.
No new taxes.
But one real fast before we get out of here, because there was a big yearly subannual meeting of the minds. Kearney, talk about your Apple folk.
God.
What are the new announcements? What's amazing coming out of Apple today?
So here's how you know that Apple is a company that has a giant cult of people that will listen to anything they say. There were a lot of Apple announcements today. They announced a new iPhone, a new iPod Touch, a new iPod Nano, but they also announced
iTunes 11.
iTunes 11, but that's the funny thing is that's not even the craziest thing they announced. On stage, at a keynote presentation, they announced a new plug that plugs your iPhone into a USB port. No shit. And it does nothing. You know what the craziest thing about it is? It's reversible. You can plug it on either side. More. But that's, again, not even the worst thing. You know what the worst thing they announced today is? It's called the Loop. You know what it is? It's a fucking thing that keeps your iPhone, or your iPod Touch only on your wrist. It's like a little lanyard loop that attaches to your iPod Touch.
I bet it's got a magnet in it. Fucking magic in this shit.
But so they announced a bunch of stuff, and I was super disappointed for a variety of reasons.
It cures cancer.
But the Loop! How do you do that? What other company on the face of the planet can get away with announcing the Loop?
Chicago has a Loop.
Do you think at this point there's a portion of them going, what kind of bullshit can we slide in?
It is.
We're going to make a rubber band.
Andy Kaufman's working for them now and going like, oh man, these guys are such idiots.
Well, we were talking about it at work today. It's like the iPhone 4 and 4S are fucking awesome phones. Like, how do you get better than that? You know, and they like, would you
make it taller?
Would you
make it bigger? Make it bigger.
Would
right?
you go? Oh yeah, I need a new phone because it's got a little bit more screen ratio. You know?
If I could like put my finger on it and drag it, and the phone actually got bigger as I was dragging
actually,
it, that
Jay,
would be innovative.
Actually, Jay, they're banking on that you want to buy, and they're banking on the people who will buy the Loop.
Did anyone,
The Loop!
Did anyone see the oatmeal comic of like Apple consumers where they're like, oh my god, it's the new iPhone, I totally gotta have it, and they're shelling out the money. Oh my god, it's the new MacBook, I totally gotta have it, and they're shelling out the money. And then he's like, $3.99 for an app. No. So I don't know if I can afford that. I'm gonna have to check with my financial advisor.
But you know what the worst part of it was? And there's a variety of things with the announcement. The taller iPhone is crazy. They're fragmenting their market. They're doing so many things that they never stood for. But the craziest part for me was the Foo Fighters performed at this event.
I missed that part of
Foo Fighters performed
3 songs.
Dave Grohl comes out. Dave Grohl, drummer of Nirvana, like literally one of the godfathers of modern rock and roll, comes out and gives like a paragraph-long speech about how the Apple company is what it's all about, and these are the geniuses paving the way for our future. No! What do you mean?
Don't be that guy.
Dave Grohl? Why? Dave Grohl?
I mean, say you like the phone and walk away.
Like, literally, both Kurt Cobain and Steve Jobs died again today because they were so disappointed in what happened at that press conference.
So you see the comic where they're both watching the TV and they're like, fucking told you. Away, Steve Jobs.
What I just love, too, is how for the past, 7 years, 8, 9 years or whatever that they've had this connection, that you have bought all of your docking stations, all of your speaker systems, all of your everything. Nope.
Does that not work?
A converter though? Don't worry about it.
There's the converter that
and
you
they
have
announced
to
the converter
purchase.
at their fucking thing.
I convert.
You have
I convert.
And it has a stupid name. The cable is called Lightning. They labeled a cable. It's not just called a USB cable anymore. It's called Lightning because it's reversible.
The best thing, in my opinion, was when they showed they're like, now take a look at these new apps that utilize the new screen. And it was like the CNN app, instead of having a bar at the top, had like a banner that went like to the top of the screen.
An ad banner now that fills the screen.
You can see like 2 more emails in your email file, and then they're going to letterbox all of your existing apps. So you're going to buy a phone that has 700,000 apps you can buy, all of which are letterboxed except for 12 that Apple made. It is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
They are the best shysters in business right now.
And I'm saying all this, but I swear to God, I'm going to buy one.
You're so going to buy one. And that was what I was going to get around to. You know Curdy's going to buy this damn phone.
Yeah.
I just, and that, what's funny, as much as I hate on them, I secretly want them to come up with these cool ideas. And I honest to God believe in some divisions they lead, at least it's definitely in design. I think they lead in design for sure, and I wish more products were designed how
I
they
just
are.
wish they would quit all the patent work.
Today though, to me was a fucking joke. Like I secretly were reading it, hoping for some cool shit. Like I hate on them, but I can go, okay, that's actually pretty cool. I have the 4S. I like my phone. But then you read that and you're like, okay, guys, fuck. And I didn't even make it to the loop. I would have lost all my shit.
Dude, the loop is horrible.
I could
And
take
it
that off my
connects
Wii
right here,
controller
so
and
you
hook
can
it up.
yeah, exactly. Wii controller it to your wrist. But to me, it's just like nowadays.
You
again,
can't explain that.
I think we've talked about this on the show before, but to me, it's just like fluff. It's just gimmicky things. Like I have a TV. It is 65 inches. Okay, it is 2 inches thick. It is this thick. Okay. And now there's some jackass going like, you can get it this thick.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So that's I could tell that when I'm looking at it straight on.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, and that TV now is like $3,000 more. And you're just like, things keep, it's like, it is 22% shorter. Okay. So 22% of 1 inch, so that makes it 1/8.
I love the
Jason, what'd you
just
think?
like,
What'd you
oh
think of the
my God.
keynote?
Well, I
This
really
is
like
pointless.
the part in the keynote where they said that we've designed the iPhone for your hand.
That's right. You said that
And
earlier.
then I can't remember which one of our buddies on the email chain said it took them 5 years to design an iPhone for your hand.
They patented the shape.
Yeah, they did.
It's fucked up.
But-
Well, you know what's funny is the
patent
original
shapes now.
iPhone,
Yeah,
Steve
that is-
Jobs said, is perfectly designed for your hand. He said
Sesame
the
Street's
size
screwed.
I do
is
remember that.
perfectly
I remember
designed
that,
because your
right.
thumb can reach almost
Right.
everything. on there.
I'm waiting for the moment where Apple goes after Sesame Street for like. You can't show a rounded box on Sesame Street anymore. I'm sorry.
Okay, look. So we're gonna
I
go
know yours
slightly
are-
over. We're about ready to wrap it up, but we're still. Let's. I want to kick on this Apple thing before we.
You're just
we get out of
excited
here.
because I'm down on Apple.
No, no, no,
and
no,
you're
no,
like,
no.
oh my God, Kearney's down on Apple.
No, it's
Wait,
what
the,
you've said to me, Kearney, about they're getting to a point now that now you're going to get everyone after them. And the articles coming out as of recent, I can't not talk about because they are what they are. One of which, and this blows my mind. I know you guys hadn't heard. I just posted it today. Apple, in their latest roundup of lawsuits, they're going after a Polish grocery store in Poland. Now, what's interesting, the two things they're going after is, one, the extension, the web extension in Poland is .pl. Okay? So the name of their website is a.pl. Apple, okay, fair enough. I see where you're at. I see where your head's at. Their logo is this green circle with a leaf on the top, not connected. Okay, I could see. The article went on to joke, which I find funny because this is what I thought. Because clearly people in Poland, which is kind of ironic in its own funny way, are going to go there looking for a 32 gig iPhone and then come home with a bushel of apples. Yes. Are you fucking kidding me? Leave the grocery store alone. You want to sue Google? Have at it, dude. You guys got money for days. The Polish grocery store run by A, who's probably Alfred. Are you fucking kidding me?
Cease and desist.
Seriously?
But I will say, and this goes back to because they're number one, were they always doing this and just nobody cared until now? And that's what I wonder.
I don't know.
Is what
maybe
came
you guys
first,
know.
the cart or the horse? Like, is it, or the chicken or the egg? Were they just always a shiesty tech company? And are all these companies, is in the back of our heads, like I'm trying to think of like a great tech company now, like Valve. Is Valve suing people for shitty things right now? But nobody's talking about it because they're Valve and nobody cares yet. And then one day when Valve does get bought by a giant company and then they do it, you go, oh man, what are you doing? You guys are evil. And it's like, we were evil all along.
But you know what though? But that comes along with it, and that's like
No,
you
totally.
said. You're
And
getting
it's
to a
the-
point now where maybe you should start thinking about some of these actions because it's going to come down. In a lunchtime conversation, we didn't even put this on the web that I found interesting. Is so Google had bought the patent rights to Motorola. Now, what I found interesting with that is the number of patents that Motorola owns, which is retarded. And one of the biggest ones is their wireless technology. Matter of fact, they own wireless...
Almost all of it.
Almost all of it. Now, Google has stated that they have tried to stay out of all this. What I found out recently is Google finally said, fuck it, we'll go after them.
Game on.
They basically are suing them for every single thing that Apple has wireless for. Period.
Wow.
Their
And
entire
that's
product
gonna be-
line that is wireless.
And it's almost...
I wonder if Samsung came and like they were just like, hey, fuck them up, dude. Fuck them up.
Enemy of my enemy. Come
Exactly.
But I hadn't heard a lot of news about that. And I had to go back and, we heard the story from one of our friends, Jen, and I had to go research it. They are basically saying everything that they have wireless in is infringing on Motorola's, aka Google's, patents.
Yeah.
And they want to go as far as to say you need to stop making them, very much to what they try to do with Samsung. Not even a dollar amount is my understanding. It almost to them, what I read was they don't care about the money as much as they care of you
Just
can't
don't
make
make it.
those
Yeah.
or come up with your own shit.
Clash of
So I don't know,
Titans.
Jay, have you heard anything about that at all?
You-
Okay, Jason Carter. With that said, unless Jay,
I was just gonna say one last thing is that, like, and this could start a whole nother conversation, which we don't have to go into. But the whole like idea, like, okay, Google versus Apple, great, that's awesome. But the whole idea of patents and like being able to sue somebody over a shape of a phone or something is just seems a little bit much to me. And I honestly feel like it's gonna restrict creativity rather than.
Well, it is
I
because
need to
like,
let it go. The same
like
way.
you can't do
Yeah.
a circle thing. That's why you
It's
realize
gotten out
they
of
will
control.
do like this and then a slight straight edge and then another straight and then like down and then because you can't do around.
They're-
it.
A lot of
rich.
a lot
Let
of
it go.
innovation is based off of previous discoveries, and if we can't extend on that because there's a legal block, that's gonna screw people up,
Yeah.
or it'll make us really smart. I don't know, one of the two. But
We're gonna find a whole bunch of different ways to do shit.
yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Nerdtastic in 3D, episode number 39. My name is Jason Carter.
I'm Jack Eckler.
Sean Fennel, it's good to be back.
I'm Josh the Brat.
For Sean Carter.
I needed it.
Oh, I'm Josh Brott again.
I'm Sean Kearney, and I like when Jack says things in another language.
And I'm Jason Pecho, and I don't want to sit next to Sean next week.
I also like to cuddle.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Nerdtastic, Nerdtastic, Nerdtastic.